Hello viewers and welcome again to Discovering Truth, and I am Pastor Forbes from the Gateway Abiding Word Ministries in the Gambia. We're going to start what I believe will be a two-part, possibly a three-part series on what I entitle Leadership Musts, leadership obligations, the musts of leadership. And I am talking across the board because leadership starts with self-leadership, and it grows, of course, into global leadership through different rungs of the leadership ladder. Anybody who exercises any amount of oversight, authority, influence, and guided control is exercising leadership. And it presumes and presupposes that that person, an individual, has the wherewithal to move those people in a visionary way into an expected end, an end that's more to be preferred than where they took off from. Having said that, it means that when things happen in leadership that are great, you get a pat on your shoulder. And of course, every leader will tell you when things are going bad, then the tension, the pressure, the fingers are pointed at them, whether you are male or female. As it said in English, uneasy lies the head that wears the crown, because there is so much expectation from you, whether you can deliver or not. In leadership, people don't want to know whether you have the money, the time, whether you are well, you are sick, you are able or not, you are tired. They just pull and draw from you because you are the leader. And that also assumes that if it is a position you vied for in an office, in a religious institution, in school, in academia, in politics, then you must be ready to pay the price for leadership. There are many world leadership experts, but there is one that I know of. His name is John Maxwell, and his institutes and his books are global. And there's a statement he makes. He says, everything falls and rises on leadership. If it rises, it's good leadership. If it falls, possibly the leadership is either inattentive, unprepared, outdated, or maybe just plain bad. But in leadership, you are expected to be able to read signals and respond to them rightly. Not just read them, but respond to signals and signs rightly. It means you must have discerning capacities, capabilities, or have some kind of structure that feeds into you, that informs you so that you make informed decisions. Now, every leader will tell you, from parental leadership, academic leadership, military leadership, civil society, that no leadership decision is always going to be pleasant. Children can tell you that from their parents. Children want things and the parents tell them no, and it's no, because the parent, even though a friend of their own child, is a leader to their child, hopefully guiding them to a place where when daddy and mommy are not there, they have the tools and the roadmap to continue in life. So in leadership, you're supposed to be able to read signs, respond to them, think properly, think on your feet, analyze, deduce, conclude, and plan a response. And in all that, be fluid to make the necessary changes as time goes. Because for each one of us in leadership, the clock is ticking. There is no permanence in leadership anywhere in the world. Sometimes it appears to be like that, but because we are in such a jet age, atomic age, micro economic age, things are moving so fast that whatever you knew at 8 o'clock this morning possibly could be expired by 6 o'clock this evening. So you have to keep abreast with all kinds of global activities and, of course, normal activities. And so it also presupposes that before you get into any situation of leadership, you have either planned for it, prepared for it, because the situations are so real life, and as I said, they turn around so quick that they do not have time to wait for my preparedness or my ill preparation. They come. And it's like maybe two teenagers who decide to get married. Obviously, teenage life, teenage age, teenage experience is not the age for marriage. But once they decide to get married, and if they get married legally, or even if they hide, the expectations, the stresses, the trauma, the persecutions, the demonic attacks of marriage will come to that couple irrespective of whether they were prepared or not. It's the same thing about jobs and expectations. It's all wonderful when you become the top person at your job, the MD, the DG, the PS, the minister, the president, the pastor, anything you become. But once you sit on that chair, it becomes a very hot chair. Sometimes you are multitasking so many decisions at the same time because all kinds of constituent parts are exacting their own demands from you, and maybe you have no prior experience in that field. And so leadership is somewhat fearful, it's very challenging, but we trust God that He helps us when we also know what to do right. So I'm going to use a few verses from the Bible as my guide. As always, I'm going to use the book of Proverbs. Proverbs is one of my favorite chapters. As I always say, it has 31 chapters, so you can read a chapter every day for a month and glean a lot of wisdom just by reading it and how to handle life. But this is what Proverbs and chapter 27, I am reading particularly verses 23 and 24, but I'll go down to 27. And I think we should all listen to this carefully. In whatever form of leadership you are in, listen to this, because this is especially for leadership. And so there are some musts, M-U-S-T-S. It's a must for leadership. It's a non-negotiable. So this is what is written in Proverbs chapter 27, verse 23. I start. Be diligent to know the state of your flocks and attend to your herds, because riches are not forever, nor does a crown endure to all generations. 25, when the hay is removed and the tender grass shows itself, and the herbs of the mountains are gathered in, the lambs will provide your clothing, and the goats the price of a field. Then you shall have enough goat's milk for your food, for the food of your household, and the nourishment of your maid servants. Let me explain this just in general terms. It starts by saying that everyone who has flocks or herds, or any leader that's exercising oversight for productivity, for results over people, and in this case over animals, must be diligent to know their state. So when it comes to leadership of any organization, and certainly when it comes to national leadership, it means those in national leadership, it means the executive, the judiciary, the legislative arm, and certainly His Excellency the President must be diligent to know the condition or the state of the nation. Must be diligent and take time with intentionality to know the state and the condition of the nation. That is why some countries have either a biannual, sometimes an annual, some countries have it maybe even monthly, what is known as the State of the Nation Address, where the leader of the nation, the prime minister, the president, in some places the king or the queen, they come to let the citizens know the state, because they have received information from all kinds of ways of gathering information, and they have distilled that information into a statistical reality to say that this is the true condition of our nation. This is the condition of the school. This is the condition of the bank. This is the condition of the religious institution. This is the condition of tourism. This is the condition of agriculture. This is the condition of health and education, justice, human rights, economics, the youth, children, foreign affairs, our global mandate, and all that. But you must be diligent to know the state. The reason he says that is number one, verse 24 says, because wealth and riches do not last forever. No leader is going to go far by burying his or her head in the sand like an ostrich, or waiting to be pushed into activity either by social media information or the pressures of different constituencies. It's almost like saying a parent has 5 children and any child that cries, the parent reacts. That's called firefighting. But if the parents already have a structured system and they have systematized it for the growth and the development of their children, irrespective of the temper tantrums, the children will walk within that structure. It's like an academic curriculum. It's like a university degree. It's like grade 12 exams. It's like IB, IGCSE, WASI. There is a structure, and you cannot jump the structure. So riches are not always going to be there forever. So if you close your eyes, what appeared good when you started may be going down, and you cannot discern it, you cannot decipher, you do not know, either because you are removed from the reality of the state of the flocks, or there is a structure around you that is telling you, Pastor, all is well, Bishop, all is well, Imam, don't worry, President, everything is fine, yes sir, CDS, all is well, Dad and Mom, all is fine. No. Parents can tell you that, as great as child minders and maybe nannies, and with no, I don't have an agenda against nannies, but you know, sometimes a nanny can tell you, yes, halibi lekana, one nana mewam, he don't drink, you know, they bobbed them. But as the parent, you can tell that it is not true, because in parenting, you do not abdicate that responsibility to the nanny, as good as the nanny may be. It's like education too. The children go to school, they spend most of their functionally active hours of the day in the hands of teachers. But when they come home with workbooks, with homework. And with or without that, as parents, we're supposed to debrief so we can understand the state of our children. We can understand the state of the flocks, and we can give attention to the herds. Because what we assume is always going to be like that will not be like that. It says, for riches are not forever, neither does a crown endure for all generations. At the very least, health, age tells upon us. At the very least. Longevity is not given to us as the luxury of youth. As we grow older, we begin to see that it is not as it used to be. Then in verse 25, he says, when the hay is removed and the tender grass shows itself, and the herbs of the mountains are gathered in, the lambs will provide your clothing. What that means is then you now have vegetation to feed the animals. You have what it takes to feed them, and in their feeding, of course, they grow, and in their growth and health, then either you sell them, and you know, lambs become sheep, and the sheep are shared, and the skin can be used for all kinds of things, from clothing to cardigans to woolies to pillowcases to all kinds of things. So the lambs will provide your clothing, and the goats the price of a field. And you shall have enough goat's milk for your food, for the food of your household, and the nourishment of your servant. So it means that the end product of wealth or prosperity or wonderful indices that make people clap for our nation are not just going to happen by magic. It means that they must be engineered. We must socially engineer them. There must be a vision, there must be a timeline, there must be structure for the vision, and those who are overseeing the vision must be diligent to look, to consider the state of their flocks and attend to their herd. So we must look at the state of the nation. I must look at the state of my family, the state of our church, the state of your institution. There is no use in somebody dressing superfluously well and going around, but the institution is dying. There is no use in somebody driving a wonderful car, but the family is hungry. It means we are not being diligent to consider our flocks. It's interesting because there are different renditions of the scripture. Let me read a couple of them, just few. One says, know well the condition of your flock and pay attention to your herds, because wealth is not forever. Another one says, be sure that you know the condition of your sheep. Pay careful and close attention to your goats. Another translation says, be well informed of the condition of your flocks. Pay attention to your herds. Another one says, be diligent to know the countenance. So the state, the countenance, the condition of the nation, of the family, of the citizenry, of the village, of the group, the leaders, apart from just maybe being vision driven, must also look at the condition and the state of the people. You know, I remember many years ago at Independence Stadium, many years ago, maybe 22 plus years ago, you know how the schools will march in front of the president and the guest, and there was a particular head of a school, female head of a school, who was marching so happily, and she was facing the front and marching, but she had marched so fast and she had left the next line of marching, the teacher and the students and the person holding the flag, almost 50 meters. And the stadium was laughing and people were clapping, and she didn't understand what it was, but there was so much noise that when she turned behind, she noticed that they were far behind. A leader must be diligent to know the state of your flocks. Where are the people? Are they with you? It is great for me as a pastor of Abiding Word Ministry to want to build a pie in the sky. But if the people cannot eat, then my pie is useless. It means that I must be able to understand where they are and bring them to where I believe by vision and national desire they must be. And so there is statistics that is used sometimes to make us understand the state of our nation, the state of the family. All over the world, statistics go on all the time, surveys go all around the time to know anything and everything. And there are some statistics that have gone around in recent times concerning our country. And I am no statistician, but I believe that statistics gives you a guide from which you can deduce some truth, albeit sometimes difficult truth, and sometimes likely shameful results. But you know, as we've always been taught, when you are able to identify the problem, you are 50% into solving it. When you deny the problem, then you haven't really started. And so when we want to solve issues and we start looking into the condition of our flocks and looking at the condition of the nation, it's no place for an ostrich mentality. In the Bible days, when kings heard from God how bad things were in their own realm that they were leading, sometimes they tore their clothes, they put ashes on their head, they declared a national fast of people and even animals. They started an inward national soul searching. Where have we gone wrong? Why have we been blindsided? What are our priorities? Are these the real felt needs of the people? Are these going to be beneficial, or are these just other people's imposed nicely ideas upon us? What legacy are we going to leave 40 years from now, 20 years from now? What is going to happen? And sometimes information that came to the kings could be bad. Sometimes it could even be damning. But those information became tools for them to make amends. And any leader in any way that does that would come into a deliberate success, especially when they are seen to be personally involved in fixing the problem and not just directing on how the problem is to be solved. And most leaders in those days, and even today, knew that there's a kind of legacy that they want. I recently heard one of the Southern African presidents saying that he's made a rule in his country that no minister must be involved in procurement. And if they're involved in procurement, he will fire them, because obviously there's going to be conflict of interest, and they're going to leverage their political ministerial portfolio upon the procurement authority. And these are best practices. And when you do that, you want to leave a legacy. You have legacy at the back of your mind, because if it goes down, it was you. If it goes up, you. We are possibly, I think we're in what we are calling the Third Republic now, and books are going to be written about our 22-year Second Republic. If 10 books are written, I am not sure whether 3 will hail the 22 years. And there are good things to be said about that 22 years, infrastructure and pushing, but it's all been dampened by pain and shame and deaths and so many things that needed not happen if leadership was paying attention to the condition of the flocks. You know, there is one thing about, like somebody said, nobody likes the vultures, but the vultures clean the city. The vultures pick the dead carcasses way before maybe the health services come in. Sometimes you need, in leadership, you need your own people and you need the opposition, as it were. So when a good leader is traveling, he just doesn't go with the government press, he also goes with the opposition press, because the government press is going to say exactly what they want, the government wants to hear, maybe because they want to maintain their jobs. But the private press, the opposition, will give you from another angle, and that is good, because we can all be blindsided by hero worshipping, by psychophancy, by tribalism, by the things that people just come and they clap for you. As I was growing as a young pastor, I remember my mentor telling me this. He said, be careful of the people who come to you in your day of glory. Be careful of the people who come and hail you. You are the best. Amulo omorum. You know, yala mola fiteg. You know, all these things people say. And you know, we are all human. We are all human. After some time, it starts seeping in. If you're not careful, it starts seeping into your life. And pride begins to creep in. And a haughtiness begins to creep in. And then you believe you can kill people, you can detain people, you can shift things. And the rest becomes a difficult journey for everybody. In leadership, from the Bible, you must be diligent. Diligent to know the state of affairs of the led so that you can attend to them. So look at these statistics that came our way, and most of you know because it's on social media. Over the period of time it was done, the fertility rate in our country, the Gambia, on average, the Gambian woman will have 5.6 children. And this Gambian woman, her age starts from around 15. This is a teenager that ordinarily should be in Form 4 or maybe grade 11, because childbearing ages start around 15 here. It's a statistical fact that between 15 and 19, babies start coming. We are told that our population is growing at the rate of 3.1%. And the percentage population of youth in this country under 15 is almost 45.9%. So these are possibly grade 11, who knows, grade 12 students. What skill do they have? That is the condition of the flocks. That is the state of the kids. Now, in that percentage of 46%, 19% are between 15 and 24, 65% are under 24, and our elderly population is just 3.8. Our dependency ratio is high. 18% of our girls aged 15 to 19 are already in childbearing ages, and who knows, maybe some of them are forced into marriage and pushed into marriage. And because our time is coming to an end, I will stop here, but there's a lot more that we'll have to start looking at. And as I said, I'm no statistician, but I'm sure I can read this simple thing. When a percentage of rural poverty is 70 and urban poverty is 30, then it basically means that every 2 people out of 3 in rural Gambia is really, really suffering. And we're going to look at this and see how we can answer this from a leadership point, and I trust God will help us. My time is up, and this is part 1. Until I come your way next week, by the grace of God, this is Pastor Forbes saying, I hope we can sleep peacefully with this and wake up tomorrow morning to start walking, especially at leadership level. Even if this did not happen in 1 year or in 18 months, we can still work to adjust it. Have a good evening. God bless us all and good night.